Donington circuit walk. So we start from the start-finish line. Obviously, you're gonna end up very, very wide here to the right. And we will just go across the road to the left slowly through that pretty narrow, pretty short start-finish straight line. It's not so long, so there's not much speed to be gained. But anyway, we go to the left here. Now, here start the problems. Now, as you can see, T1 is on the right. So we have to stay as left as possible, okay? We have to stay as left as possible. Let me also switch to the desktop webcam so that you guys can also see the mouse. Let me check if everything works properly. Yes, okay. Right, and we have to stay as left as possible, and at the same point we also have the pit exit. So you need to be always extra careful if someone is already on the pits and maybe exiting, and obviously people exiting have to be extra careful if someone is approaching. But that's the way it is with Donington. There is nothing you can do about it, just you have to be aware and be careful. So what we're doing here is, as I said, staying as left as possible. Best drivers will even start to go even outside a bit of the road, so towards the left even more, because it's still asphalt here, okay? And what is our first braking reference point? So the braking reference point is actually towards the end of this green asphalt rectangle, this painted green asphalt, okay? And the better you get, the more you will go farther and farther. I would advise you to start braking, you know, at one line or two before the end of the green painted asphalt here. And as you get better and better and better, you can arrive and start braking right at the limit, okay, around here at the limit of the triangle. And the best of the drivers might even try tentative to go a little bit farther towards another reference point is the end of the grass here and the start of the sand trap. It is way too late, but you know, if you are low on fuel in qualifying, you might be able to arrive a little bit extra, especially if you are managing to go very wide and get as much of the track width as possible. So hard on the brakes, approaching the turn in. So while you are here, that the asphalt, you know, from the pit lane ends, this is the moment that you need to start rotating the car and entering the pits. Again, as usual, if you're experiencing understeer, this is the moment to start releasing. You need to modulate a lot the brakes to enter this turn. This turn is both faster than you think that you can enter and slower than initially turn in, because initially it's very fast turn in, but then it gets slower and slower and more narrow. So you really need to be to get in fast, but you need to modulate and trail brake up until the apex, which is a little bit later than here. So it seems that the apex is here, and you can get your inner wheels, your front inner wheels on top of these curbs. By the way, the curbs at Donington are pretty low, so it's not a big problem. But the apex, the moment that you need to start accelerating, is a little bit later, because as you can see, the turn becomes narrower and keeps on turning and turning. So if you start accelerating sooner, you're gonna end up with lots of understeer, and you're gonna end up very wide and possibly out of the track. So wait from that green patch to go over you, and then start accelerating. It also pays, at least for me, to go gradually on the accelerator here and not instantly go on the accelerator as hard as you can, because that, if your setup is a little bit not so neutral, it might, you know, raise the front and go wide into understeer. So gradually on the accelerator, and the car will slide on the outside. Curb is fine to take here, but be careful, because if you end way too much wide and onto the green ends abruptly, over here, and you will find yourself with your outside wheels on the grass and on the sand, which is not good. So don't overdo it here. Even if you go, oh, did you saw the shadow from the airplane? Haha, that's amazing. So if you go a little bit wide, get back in as soon as possible, right? On the curb, it's no problem. And then just accelerate. The downhill section here is amazing. It's one of those amazing fields, okay? Because it's all flowing downhill and then goes from right, double right, to the left, even more downhill. And if your car is properly set up, especially with a GT3 car, you shouldn't have any problems at all to take it flat out. But even while you're doing this, you will feel the car slightly sliding around, you know, moving a little bit. It's not dangerous, but it's such a great feel. It's one of the most beautiful places of driving in any circuit. So it's really, really nice, this place here. Right, so as I said, keep the steering input as low as possible. So yes, you need to make the turn, but don't overdo it, because the more you turn and the more you provoke understeer, the more speed you're going to scrap with your tires, you're consuming your tires, and you are wasting acceleration and speed. So you're wasting time. So minimal steering inputs, and we're going downhill like this. Again, apex here, a little bit wide, and again, second apex here, all right? And now what you need to do, as you see, the next turn is practically blind. Yes, you can see here the two cones of sorts, but I assure you that those will disappear after the first lap. Someone will throw them down, so you won't be able to see them anymore, and you won't be able to check where the apex for the next turn is. So again, have a look here on the grass. When the grass has those patches here, this is the moment that you need to start rotating towards the other way. Don't overdo it. As you see, you don't need much steering wheel angle, and you need again to hit this apex over here. Now, if your car generates way too much understeer for whatever reason, don't overdo it and go, you know, and force the car like this. It's even better, you know, to just raise a little bit. It might happen with GT4 cars. GT3 cars have enough downforce to not do that. But, you know, if it does it, don't overdo it. Maybe raise your foot for a minute. Let the front end go in and back on the throttle again. So like you know, telegraph with the accelerator for a minute, because you don't really want to end up somewhere around here in understeer. If you end up somewhere around here in understeer, you're gonna have issues. You're gonna be like this, and you're gonna have issues to get back in line and brake properly for the next right-hander, which is very, very important. So what you want to do instead is to arrive somewhere here with enough space on the right hand outside, and try to get back in line like this, and somewhere around here, let me show you where your reference point is. Okay, I'm gonna get disqualified. All right, so you want to brake in a straight line to scrap down speed as fast as possible. Your reference point is initially right after the end of the outside curb, and then slowly move your reference point more and more and more. Once more, I advise you to not take as reference points the billboard here, because it is one of those collidable objects that might disappear. So you need to check again the grass patch over here. So first reference points, while you don't know the track yet, is a bit after the end of the curb. So the curb finishes here, you go a little bit forward, and then you start, you know, braking. You get better and better and better. And the second reference point is this brighter grass patch over here. At first, you're gonna get this reference point because you will have the billboard, so you will train yourself to watch this patch. But again, do not brake at the billboard. Don't take the billboard as a reference point, because after a while, it won't be here in the race. as usual, also do not take as reference point the darker tire marks, because if it rains, or if it is the track is green, or if it's dark night, you won't see them. So your reference point won't be there. So this is how this is your reference point for braking. This brighter grass paths. There is also another one here, but it's probably a little bit too late. Go over that before this. Find out what's better works for you. But what you really need to know is to brake in a straight line as good as possible while going outside. So in diagonal again, you will end up outside here, and then you really want to release your brakes and go into turn in. You really don't want even to either modulate, but really very lightly, like you can see here my braking pressures. It really has to be a tiny bit of braking input, or completely release and go into the turn. Why is that? As you can see, this turn is really downhill. Okay, so if you go too much on the brakes, you will have way too much load on the front tires, and you will end up with all this weight. You will end up in understeer. And you will scrub way too much speeds, and this is one of those turns that we need to bring as much speed inside as possible, because after that we have a long straight uphill. You will see it in a moment. So don't go too much braking, because you will end up in understeer. Don't go too much trail braking with a minimal braking force, because the rear end will be way too much light. And if you are using the trail brake and you're not used to it, you're going to have lots of oversteer. So, it's going to be a problem. My advice is, since you are still approaching this turn and maybe you don't have all the experience, brake very hard into the straight line. While you arrive here, initial turn in, okay, at the start of the turn in, release the brakes, go into the turn-in coasting as fast as you can. It will be perfect like this. You will find lots of lateral grip like that, because the car and the tires won't have any extra request for longitudinal grip. So all the grip available to the tires will be lateral, okay? And that will permit you to hit this apex right here with great rotation. Right on the apex, as soon as possible, you need to go on the accelerator, but you need to do it again gradually. As we said, if you go on the accelerator very violently, you're gonna end up with a lot of understeer, because the front end will raise and you won't have enough rotation, so you're gonna end up with a lot of understeer, especially on that turn, because as you can see, right on the apex, there is a dip, and then you go instantly uphill. Uphill means that while at the exact moment that you start accelerating, all the weight goes at the rear, the front end will become extremely lightweight, especially on mid-ends in cars, and you are going to experience massive amounts of understeer at the exit of this turn. Once again, Donington, at the exit of this turn, it seems wide, but it's not, because again, the asphalt, the green patch here, ends abruptly, and again, later on, because you're gonna end somewhere around here, it's even narrower, and it ends again. So you need to go back into the asphalt as soon as possible. As I said before, this uphill section goes all the way up. It's a long section, it's all flat out, so even 1 meter sooner acceleration and 1 kilometer extra speed into that previous right-hander will bring you good gains for all the flat-out section. It's not a straight, but it's all flat-out section that follows. All right? Okay, so let's move ahead. This was one of the most wonderful places of Donington. I remember GTR 1 and GTR 2 that had Donington in, and this kind of bridge over here, I think it's water or something, it would continue over the asphalt, and on top of the bridge there was a scale model, I think, or a model, or even actually the car, I don't remember the name, but it was that car that had the top speed record back in the times, those cars that arrived almost at 1,000 kilometers per hour, and it was great to watch. Unfortunately, you know, safety reasons, they had to eliminate all that part that went over the circuit. And so we only have this part that ends before the asphalt. But, you know, it's still nice to look and to remember. So you need to go as left as possible, and then, again, minimal steering input. This is all flat out. Hit the apex here, flat out, at the outside. And once again, once you are in the outside, you have to stay as right as possible, not on the curb possibly, but as right as possible, because you want to approach this turn again flat out. This turn, if you do it properly, is flat out. Yes, thank you, chat. That record speed car was the Thrust SSC, but that is the latest one, not that one that they had back in 2000. Anyway, I don't remember. So, flat out, again, measure your steering input, okay? If you turn too much, you will go into understeer, so measure your steering input and go flat out into the stern. And not only you want to go flat out, but you want to hit the apex on the curb here, all right? And once the curb finishes, you need to be quite on the left side and going straight. Because once the curb finishes and the asphalt here patch finishes, this is when you want to be completely straight, okay, and go hard on the brakes. So the end of this curb on the outside and on this asphalt patch, this is your reference point to start braking for the left-hander, all right? So we arrive over here, hard on the brakes, okay? Braking again a little bit diagonal, but don't go towards the turn. Like this, you want to end up, you know, your reference point for braking, you have to go straight towards the big billboard here, the big TV with the advertisement, right? So you want to go straight towards that advertisement over there. Braking, braking, braking. And once you are arriving close to the start of the curb here, this is where you want to start turning towards the turn. Now, this is another turn that you need to bring speed. I mean, all turns you need to bring more speed into, but into this one in particular, it's a little bit deceptive, and you might think that you need to downshift to second gear and go inside, you know, with high revs and, you know, try to accelerate, but in reality, you will be much faster, depending on the car, but usually with GT3 cars, you only need to downshift to third gear. Even if the revs are a little bit low, don't worry, go in coasting in third gear, okay? The third gear is a longer gear, and you are going to have, you know, lower revs, so the coasting won't be as severe, and that will permit you to rotate the car, have all the lateral grip, and have more speed inside the turn. So in you go, in third gear, on the apex, okay, once more those things won't be here anymore, but you want to, while you see the last bending of the curb and the end of the curb, you want to go on the accelerator in third gear once more, and you will notice that you have enough you know, lateral grip to accelerate and to do that curve in quite a high speed. Again, you can end up wide here, and once more Donington is the same thing. You need to get back into the asphalt before the green patch ends, okay? Uphill we go. Right, so now this is a very particular turn, completely blind. You can't see anything. There is not even a good braking reference point, but I will give you the reference point as usual. It is on the right hand at the end of the guardrail, the orange pocket right here. Okay, so you go straight up, you go through the orange pocket here. This is it. Once you don't see the orange pocket, so wait for the orange pocket to disappear, this is where you're going to start braking. The better you get, the more you will see that you can, delay the braking even more and more here. Very, very tricky corner. You don't see it, there is no visibility, it's on the crest, but there are some tricks you can do on this turn to get into the turn even faster than what initially you think you're going to be able to do it. So at some point you will understand that, okay, I can, go more and more and more late in the braking zone and still make the turn. So what you need to do, brake hard, up the hill, and just on the crest, and as the curb finishes, okay, you need to turn in and try to cut this apex a lot. Your initial, your initial target should be to cut it over the grass. You will notice that because you are arriving fast enough and you are over the crest, the car practically almost, obviously it doesn't jump, but it does get lighter, and that makes the car slide towards the outside. So you're going to target the grass, but you will see that even though you're targeting the grass, the car will slide just the right amount to go over the curb and into this green patch. Now, depending on how you took the curb or the green patch or a little bit of the grass, the car might go over this apex without the minimum amount of, bouncing, which is going to be great because you will be able to accelerate a lot and exit the turn very nicely, or it will jump around. Jumping around will upset the car a little bit, but not by much, so it's easier than you think. The problem is that by jumping around, you will, depending how the car, the character of the car or how the car is set up, you will either experience a little bit of understeer, and that might, make you go wide here, and you might be, tentative with your accelerator, which will not be a good thing. Or you might experience some oversteer, which again will make, since we have a long flat out turn here, it will make the traction control intervene and it will make you lose time. So what you really want to do here is try to find the exact moment of accelerating, maybe go gradually on the accelerator, not very hard, and don't let the car either go too wide in understeer or too much in oversteer. Work with your steering wheel, smooth on the pedal, work with the steering wheel in order to keep either the front tires or the rear tires with good grip, okay? Right, so why it is so important here? Because this bend is all flat out, and not only is flat out, but it's going to take us to the long back straight. This is the longest straight of the circuit. It's a very long back straight. It's even in a little bit of a downhill, and even more so after the midway crest. So every kilometer per hour faster on the apex, or every meter sooner on the accelerator on the right-hander before us, it's going to be very, very important for the lap time during this long straight. And with this long straight, we are practically at the mid of our circuit walk, so let's take a little bit of time and watch the chat and see what you guys are saying about it, right? All right, so let's move on. So back to our circuit walk, and we are at the back straight of Donington, and obviously slowly we want to go across the road again and stay on the right hand. And it pays to go on the right hand a little bit sooner before more or less this hanger here, or whatever it is, because we need to be able to get close to the right hand of the road and stay in a straight line, because this hanger here is going to be our braking reference point. So we are going, as I said, as right to the road as possible, and as we move ahead, at some point we can see, depending on how and where you have your A-pillar, we will see the end of the hanger, and this end of the hanger just a little bit before or where completely disappears, the better you get, you know. So start maybe when the end of the hanger arrives at your A-pillar, start braking. The better you get and the faster you can go into the chicane that follows, then you can wait until the hanger wall here completely disappears. That's how late you can start braking here. So the end of the hanger, the wall, the end of the wall is it's relatively new, Matt. So the end of the wall here is your reference point for braking. All right. So braking, and we are arriving to this very, very nasty and particular chicane. And nasty because, as you can see, there are no reference points, there are no guardrails, there's nothing, so it gives you the opportunity to cut as much as possible, and you will need to cut in third gear, you know, go in third gear with a lot of speed, because if you do it properly, then you will be able, you know, to bring a lot of speed in there. Turn in sooner than you might anticipate, because you really want to place your tires here on the green spot. Let me show you from the outside so that you can understand. Okay, so you need your tires, your left tires, to go on the green spot here. This is where you want to be. This is where you want to be. Okay. Now, if you are there, it's gonna be fine. Okay. But they are a little bit severe here on this chicane. That's why they have also the tires. As you know, unfortunately, our technology does not permit us to get damage if you hit the tires. But what we did is that if you go over here and you touch the grass, okay, like this, boy, do I have bad news for you and your penalties. So do not, under any circumstances, do not touch the grass. Okay, go over the green asphalt here, Pats, but do not touch the grass, because 90% of the times you're gonna get a penalty. If you get on the asphalt, on the green patch here, and you do it properly, once you are, you're exiting here, you will see that you will find yourself able to approach the next part of the chicane without big issues. If, on the other hand, you don't go as much inside, and you take this first part of the chicane without hitting the apex, so you are a little bit wide, like this maybe, okay? If you stay like that, then this is bad news, because as you can see, you are going way too straight, and possibly you won't be able to approach the next part of the chicane properly, and you either gonna be too fast and you won't be even able to turn around the chicane, and you will hit again the sand trap, and if you hit the sand trap, you will get penalty again, okay? Or you will be first to slow down as much as possible to be able to make the turn. So go inside to the green paths, hit the green paths, don't go on the grass, do it properly, and you will find yourself somewhere around here, and once you are here, you see you won't have any problems at all to simply go over the curb like this. Once more, it is possible to cut here as much as possible, as long as you keep your right hand tires on the green painted asphalt. If you go on the sand trap, penalty again. So This is how you have to do it. Cut as much as you can. Don't go on the grass or on the sand. Okay, this is how you approach this chicane. Be careful. On the exit, you will be already accelerating from the first apex here. You will be full throttle, but going over this part and cutting a lot will make your car jump around, and you know, jumping will upset your car, will upset the traction. You might experience oversteer, understeer, you know, the car will move around. So be careful how you approach it. Try to, at least when you are jumping, to have the steering wheel as straight as possible and then turn again. You know, do some practice over that. But just keep in mind that the more upset you arrive into the last part of the chicane, the more problems you're going to have when the car will jump over the chicane. Okay? So, we go out. And we are arriving at the last two corners of the circuit. We stay on the left. Those corners are both hairpins, 180 degrees. They are both frustrating, let's say. Okay, so when to start braking for this corner? As usual, difficult to find once more the reference point, and once more we have to watch at the outside here. Again, we have this orange guardrail pocket. So this is a reference point. You will see also the grass here is a little bit wider, and there is a sign from tires here on the curb. As usual, stay careful. Don't trust the sign of the tire marks too much, even if it's over the curb. So start with the orange. You know, when you are arriving close to the orange here, start braking. The better you get, you can go a little bit farther, maybe use these clearer parts of grass. This is where you have to start braking. Brake as straight as possible, okay? And once you are arriving, once you are passed through this cylinder here, I don't know what it is, this cylinder here, once you go past through the cylinder, personally, I believe some, you know, some aliens will probably try a different kind of line. They will probably go straight and then get a later apex. I'm not sure it's gonna work. Okay, the camber of the road, and I can also tell you an anecdote about that. The camber of the road here, to me, it seems that once you are over that cylinder, if you go a little bit inside sooner, okay, and keep on braking, you go a little bit inside sooner, the camber helps you to stay in, and once you are arriving on the curb, release the brakes and stay over the curb to help the car rotate. Now, anecdote here. In GTR 2, I believe, obviously there were no laser scan tracks. They were pretty good, GPS I think and everything, but they weren't laser scanned, and this turn was pretty much flat. And I remember the best drivers, it would pay to stay outside and made an even wider radius of the line, because it would give you a better acceleration. And I remember myself going into the apex and still not being as fast from, you know, faster drivers that would stay a little bit outside. As far as I have tried here the same, you know, trick and method, it doesn't work, because I believe that the camber of the road from the laser scan, you know, it forces you to stay very, very close on the apex here. You know, help the car rotate a little bit with the camber, with the curb, and then go on the accelerator again and exit the turn. Okay. So, exit, cross the road again, and go to the right. And that is the last turn of the circuit, which is particularly difficult. It's another hairpin. It's even narrower from the last hairpin. It's even more difficult, and it's also blind. So all the problems together. So what to do? First reference point for braking until you learn how to do it is the start of the curb. And as you get better and better and better, you will start braking closer to the end of the red stripes. Okay, so not always, and not with all the cars, not with all the conditions, you can brake at the end of the red stripes. So maybe, you know, start braking a little bit sooner, somewhere around there. But somewhere around here is the terminal, let's say, braking point, reference braking point for this turn. Brake straight. The moment the curb ends here, start going towards the turn. Don't wait too much, because as you can see, there is no camber at all at the outside of the turn. Okay, there is lots of camber towards the inside of the turn. So the moment the curb starts finishing, don't turn too much, because you're still away from the turn. So don't go like this, but slowly go into the diagonal, keep braking, go into the diagonal, and go in somewhat an early apex. Don't take the apex. Ideally, you want to stay, you don't want to go over this apex. Okay, that's not the apex. You want to stay a little bit wider, you know, so maybe practice and then watch your car from the outside a couple of times, because as you can see, it's not a perfect turn. You see, there is a turn here, then it goes straight, and then turns again, a little bit straight, and then turns again. Right? So it's very, very tricky, and it's blind. You cannot see anything at all. So stay over here. If you manage to do everything properly, this right here is the moment that you release the brakes, and you will see that, incredibly enough, the car will start, you know, closing in, and you will be able to take the apex around here. Once you're on the apex, on the throttle gradually, a little bit of patience, full throttle, and exit, and here you are again at the start-finish line straight. That is a lap with all the reference points of Donington. Great track, amazing, part of the British GT DLC, and what can I say, one of my favorite tracks. Really love it, very, very technical, really takes a lot of practice to nail every single turn better and better. All right? Cool.